the chain will evolve a little more slowly with new features and such.
Right on.
Sorry for blabbing for too long.
Not at all. No, that was great. And we got another one here from Martinez. He's saying that handling rollbacks with parallelized computation sounds like huge complexity, although it could switch to sequential processing when it reaches K blocks to tip. Does that sound
absolutely? That's a possibility.
Yep. And Circarin wanted to say, fantastic answer. Thank you. So Soup is telling us that he's into the tip of the chain. There's more on the tip. Welcome to SpacePlace. Thank you, Soup. So we got this is some fascinating stuff going on here, right? We're digging into the internals here has brought up some things that we can continue to work on, some things that as a community we probably need to be aware of. This is interesting on the math library, is that, yeah, if we don't all agree on something like that, it's going to cause some problems. I'm curious if there's, Sam, is there a reason that we wouldn't use a generic library right now? Is there something specific in there that we need to be using this Haskell math lib, or?
Probably it's just that was the math library they found that did the calculation they needed to, and it is just not quite the same as other math libraries. I mean, that's always the fun thing when you're using a third-party library rather than rolling your own. You never quite get exactly what you want, and you just have to work around some things.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Yep. And I did see Josh came in and to
Thank
say
you.
hello. At first, I thought Josh said "nerds out" because he came in for a second and popped out, but then he came back. So I guess he wasn't.
Yeah,
he
no,
wasn't
I just
nerds
I was playing around there. I think I came with the wrong account initially. I don't know, but yeah, I had to hop out. Yeah, I think it's because I'm streaming it on my channels as well. But I want to echo a few sentiments that some of you guys said earlier. So I want to join Chris in saying, sorry to the DripDropz team. I didn't really sort of like bash them at all, but they did become an example for me when we were talking about funding and the catalyst, and we say, oh, well, I'm not a Daedalus Turbo kind of thing. Although I had followed their progress a little bit, and so I had seen their updates, so I had seen that they were doing something. So for quite a while, I've seen something on the horizon. But got to thank Andrew Westberg, because he's quite a trusted man in the community, and you really pointed out that you were running tests. We saw the preliminary, examples of what you're doing. And so now, are you saying this fully works now? Is that what you were saying?
No. I'm saying it's a great proof of concept. And I think it highlights a number of areas where we can improve, where we need to challenge our assumptions.
Who are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
We Cardano, we IOG, we everybody in the space, like corporate we as a community went out and bashed Daedalus Turbo. A lot of that was probably like, oh, they're getting a lot of money. Well, that could have been used somewhere else, maybe in my project. There's a lot of tribalism.
And it changed the whole funding. Like we're all in milestones now. But not that I say milestones are a bad thing either. I think they, that is probably something that should have been done. And just Daedalus Turbo highlighted that problem that, oh, you're going to trust me with all this money, or are you going to let me, and it's like, well, will you do it in milestones? And I think that despite their good intentions and that they're really working on it and trying to do it, but it actually spurred on quite a sort of good thing for Catalyst, I think, at least.
For sure.
Good and bad. I mean, it caused a lot of overhead cost to be added to every single project. So that's the flip side.
Especially when we weren't prepared for it. It's fine now that we're prepared for it, and you can bake those costs in. But in that round, it was very hard to deal with the overhead costs that I
can imagine.
Not ready for.
A lot of people got frustrated at that alone, because all of a sudden the rules have changed mid-game, and everybody was like, "The fuck."
Jeff was running Adapulse at that time, so he dealt with all that. Now I've just got the sort of the legacy of it, and it was all kind of laid out pretty straightforward. And
right.
So now that they've sort of fixed it, I think it was a bit of a rush at the time. I know Jeff was stressed.
It was tough in the beginning. I was there as well. Yeah, I was there as well, running the Fund 9 stuff, and it was hard. You know, it was hard for all of us. But I was also part of the conversation with, should we be funding something like Daedalus Turbo? And it's interesting because there's and this is one of the important things. We've heard a lot of it on social. It's like, oh, I guess we were all wrong, and Daedalus Turbo is completely right, and everything's right in the world. Well, Daedalus Turbo is Alex is building something. What he's building is interesting. What he's building may have some application in a number of places. It may or may not be what his original vision was, but all of that aside, what is important is that this whole community we do come together. We do figure out where we've got problems. We work through our problems, and then we're saying, hey, he was right over here.
There's a lot of apologies to be made by lots of people. I know you guys have made some apologies here, but you know, there's so many. The amount of people that put Turbo in their Twitter handle, every one of those people need to kind of apologize a little bit.
Well,
I kind of saw this coming though. So I know, Andrew, you said they're not there yet, but I saw it coming because they were producing results and I was following their Twitter and seeing it. So I was a bit like, okay, this could be happening, you know.
Yeah, and it's I think it's more
Charles said they couldn't do it, pretty much.
Yeah,
like
maybe not in those. It's interesting. It's interesting from the standpoint of, you know, Catalyst is an innovation fund, and I think we need to remember that Catalyst is not we only fund guaranteed successful projects. Sometimes you've got to fund something that's out of bounds, a little wacky. See what somebody can do. Maybe it'll shake some ideas loose.
Absolutely.
Even if
funded,
this goes,
you know, so you gotta
even if this never goes anywhere into a commercialized product, or, you know, like, I don't think, for me personally, the security guarantees, I probably won't ever run a Daedalus Turbo node. Probably.
I didn't catch it. I was listening. I didn't catch security.
Well, the takeaway is it's good talent here, and it was money well spent. If we can, you know, those techniques. Hey, you know, if you want to keep playing and come up with cool shit, man, that we can use to improve the ecosystem, you got my vote.
Right.
Give it a crack. Basically,
we paid a person and a team not only to build something for the community, we paid them to get a super educated person that now knows how the Cardano blockchain works at some of the lowest levels. So that's an important takeaway as well. Like, Alex isn't going to go anywhere. He's in the community now. If I need to reach out to somebody and say, how does this work? He probably knows how something works. Like, he's another resource that people can tap to say, here's what I'm building. How do you think I should go about it? You know,
because we need more of those guys, actually.
Exactly. That type of talent is priceless, and so, like, that's what I'm saying. If you want to,
the more we have, the better. As you know, I'm a man who reaches out for help all the time. You know, mainly on the sort of staple best practices Telegram group, but and there's always someone to help, and we need more of those. Maybe there should be a group of you guys team together, you know.
Well, they gather here on a regular basis.
Well, you've got the okay, yeah. I mean, you've got the cream here, but there's still some fat to come on. I mean, we've got Johnny, from Intertree or whatever it is.
It's age old. You know, you even look at, like, just there's different facets of the community come with each cycle, right? We're going to get a whole new influx of people, and it's just human nature to be defensive to the ecosystem that you built, right? Like, to have a bias. And so that's going to play in. Like, you've seen it now, Josh, a couple generations of the stake pool operators that come, and all the new ones get mad at the old ones, and it's like, okay, here comes the new, and it's going to happen again. So everyone's going to be evil. And
what's funny is I'm an old one, and I should be mad at all the new ones.
Well,
because basically it's all about money. If you make money, people get mad at you, and that's just the way it is. So that's why no one's mad at me. I'm not making
easy way to keep people from getting mad at you is just don't make any money.
Yeah, exactly. But I've got funding for AdaPulse, so I'm pretty fucking happy about that. So
good.
I want to line up. I've already spoken to Chris about an interview. Carl, I want to interview you as well.
Yeah, I'm down.
But different projects. I don't want to interview the same people for
no, that's fine.
But you've got quite a big team, so you can split it up like that. So yeah, definitely need to get an interview with Daedalus Turbo team for sure.
Yeah. And now hopefully from this you'll have some context too, because it's not about it necessarily being a finished product. Right now, funny enough, in Fund 11 they would have fit in the proof of concept category, which funds up to, I believe, it's 150,000 ADA. So that's another part of this discussion. It's like they got approved for an extremely large sum of ADA.
150,000.
Well, yeah, no, they readjusted stuff after the community was skewed with Turbo, because if Turbo was,
I didn't know they changed.
Oh yeah, they added milestones and
Fund 11.
Sorry, yeah, no, I know.
Fund
about
11,
that.
we have 3 different areas. You can be funded for 150,000, 300,000, or 750,000, right? Or 700,000.
Yeah, because that's all the milestones. So
that's the different tiers. And so the tier that something like Daedalus Turbo actually fits under is a proof of concept tier, which in current parlance would only net up to 150,000 ADA to work on it. So we've gotten more nuanced as a community as to what's acceptable for proof of concept versus something that's an MVP versus something that's a launched product. And we offer different levels of funding for those different tiers. And that's another learning that came out of this whole experience. Is to get to this point. So lots of good learning, lots of good things happening.
What I love is in the face of adversity, they just stuck to it, did it. And they haven't done it, but they've put the work in at least.
They're putting work in, and
it seemed from what Andrew was saying, some quite creative ideas that they were doing without Mithril. So
and the code is very useful as I'll just say this: Haskell code is really hard to read, especially if you're not a Haskell dev.
I've heard, yeah.
And we now have a nice set of code that is mostly correct, that is in C, that is very easy to read for most computer people. They can at least read it to understand what it's attempting to do. And we know how to validate Byron blocks. We've shown how to validate Mary blocks, Shelley blocks, Babbage blocks, Alonzo blocks. We've got code for validating signatures. We've got code for encoding and decoding CBOR. We've got an ED25519 library now. Like, there's a lot of code that was put into Daedalus Turbo that we now have reference-ish implementations of that everybody can look at and read and see, like, oh, how does consensus work? How does Proust consensus work? Oh, I can look at this code and I can see step by step now.
It's not fully open source though yet, is it?
It is.
How is it?
It is. Yeah,
okay.
I don't think he's popularized it yet and published it, but he wants to clean up some loose ends. He just shared it with a few of us internally. But I think in the next couple of days, it's going to go public. Yeah, it's going to be out there.
So that was one of the requirements of this one, is that the code does have to be released publicly. So those learnings.
Oh, that was like the final milestone kind of thing.
That information is going to be out there.
Final milestone is not delivered until 2025. I think it's a huge milestone. Is the last fourth milestone, which is get the whole thing integrated into Daedalus. Which there's still some. I still have a lot of doubts whether that's going to happen. But that is the last milestone, is make it work in Daedalus.
But now Catalyst will only cover you for 12 months, though. They wouldn't cover that sort of length.
That's right.
Project
That's
again.
another thing that was changed is that we now have a maximum time frame.
Is that a good thing, though? I mean, for
Yeah,
me,
it
it's
is.
fine.
It is. What we're doing is limiting the scope of what an innovation fund is going to fund. It's only going to fund certain things in a certain scope. So, and then that's what's changing there, or has changed there. And I think for the better is that we now have a scope of this is what we're willing to tolerate. And of course, it's Catalyst that can change, and it will. There'll be other innovations
over years. Yeah,
but
decades,
for now, we've settled on this is the scope in which we're willing to risk funding, and I think that's been a big part of our growth for Catalyst. So I heard Andrew was laying down all the eras, and I didn't hear Conway. Now we know Conway's still in work very much, but
there's nothing Conway in Daedalus Turbo right now, and there is I think only some certificates are parsed today. So I think he parses like pool registrations and deregistrations because he has to track that, like Sam was saying, to get the numbers right at the epoch boundaries for stake rewards.
And stake
but
delegation.
And stake delegation. Yeah, so the delegation and undelegate, he's parsing all of those, but definitely nothing like, and I think he's doing the mirror certificates. But yeah, there's a limited validation for certificates. It's just to get the numbers right is what he's done.
And I wanted to ask Sam on that. Is that, what are we looking at whole new, now that Conway is coming and now that you guys are working in that area, is that a whole nother type of, are there more validations that are happening there that are unique to the governance actions, let's say, and things of that nature?
Absolutely.
Again, trying to bring this out for everybody to be able to understand the best they can, right? These are all different things that will also have to be validated because what we're doing in Cardano as we grow is add more features, right? There's more things the chain's capable of. These are yet more new in Conway that we're going to have to add on, right?
Yep. And I think it's really important to caveat what this is not, and at least the direction it's going that looks like he's going with, because he created the HTTP API, which Andrew can probably talk on that some with the parallel block download. But the question is, where do you get those blocks from in the first place in that HTTP API? And right now, it's looking like you have to have a centralized service to do that. Now, whether he plans on in the future implementing node-to-node network protocols, which is going to add a whole lot of complexity to the project as well, is yet to be seen. But that's something that's really, really key to know, that basically, if you use Daedalus Turbo right now, unless you're running your own local node, which is what he was trying to get away from in Daedalus anyways, you have to trust a service to give you the right blocks.
As Andrew mentioned earlier, we do that with Eternal and
that's right.
Exactly.
Wallet, yeah.
Exactly, but you can't call it a full node wallet at that point. That's the main difference there. That if you're not,
do you think it will ever be a full node wallet
protocol? It currently is. Daedalus currently is a full node.
No, not Daedalus. Daedalus Turbo. Sorry.
Oh,
possibly.
Could that ever be a full node wallet?
It's got the foundations of it, but like I said, there's so many, because it's written in C, because it's tough to make it exactly like the Haskell code. It's a huge road to get to a true full node in another language. And that's why I said don't do that until after, input endorsers, or whenever the last major rehauling of everything is done on the Haskell side. It'd be a waste of money to do it ahead of that. I think the best you're going to get with Daedalus Turbo is you've got light clients, you've got full node clients, and it's kind of like a middleweight client is what we're looking at here.
Okay. That confuses me slightly, but
okay. Well, you're validating.
I'm here to ask the dumb question. So how can you have a midway between without using Mifra or whatever?
You're still. It's where the trust lies. So a full node wallet like Daedalus that runs a full Cardano node you are trusting nobody but yourself. Like
Exactly.
everything is there. With Daedalus Turbo, you're doing a lot of stuff yourself. You're trusting yourself for most things. But like Sam mentioned, you're still trusting this download service. You're still maybe not validating everything in the exact slowest right order. So you're making some assumptions that somebody else somewhere has validated that this particular transaction is okay. Whereas with a light client, you're delegating all of that trust to a remote service on the internet, like who's ever running Eternal Wallet, who's ever running Lace, Nami, you're trusting Blockfrost. The trust is pushed out.
So the way I perceive it, again, I ask stupid questions. So the way I'm perceiving it is a bit like me setting up a node like I would, like a relay. But instead of building my own DB file, I'm literally taking someone else's and I'm trusting their DB file. And then I'm running from there. Is that essentially what we're talking about?
Yeah, and you're doing some basic checks over it. Like you're running through that DB file, you're checking to make sure it looks pretty good, and that's what he's doing. But it's not the same as downloading it one block at a time, validating everything in a very slow manner, going,
so
getting
not
the
like
next
our
block.
relays and BPs.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay.
And it's worth noting that from a security perspective, the person running this service, you better absolutely trust with your life, because if they have the ability to make one block on chain, they can trick you into doing something that you think is on chain that isn't.
That's worth noting, definitely. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are concerns still. Is that what you know?
I think
there's good and bad, with any proof of concept, and I don't think we're, I'm not at the point where I'm not going to sign transactions with Daedalus Turbo as it stands today. But again, my level of comfort or my desire of performance versus speed, like give me the lowest performance and the highest level of security. Like that's my current bent. Other people may be like, oh, I don't want to wait for this node to sync. Give me something, a little faster.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
is to run stake pools though, so that your security concerns do add up. But for many, like me, potentially, won't really necessarily have those concerns. So.
And speaking of which, Andrew, did you want to elaborate on the actual wallet itself and how it's tracking UTXOs basically, and address derivation of being able to identify the stake addresses that you need?
Yeah, so I had a discussion on Twitter DM with Alex. I pointed out an area where Daedalus Turbo was lacking. He's very receptive to that. He really appreciated the conversation, the back and forth, on a scientific level, I guess you would say. So the way that Daedalus Turbo is currently allowing you to query is you put in an address and it will scan through the whole blockchain and see any UTXOs or transactions related to that address. Or you can put in a stake address and it'll do the same thing. Look where that stake address is ever used, whatever. However, stake addresses are not necessarily always assigned or always stake address UTXOs are not always controlled by the wallet itself. We have dApps and protocols now that allow you to interact with them while keeping your ADA staked. So just because you see something with your stake address on chain doesn't mean you can directly control that ADA or that UTXO. And
yeah, so I think you tweeted about this. I think you did a thread on this. Is that it may not have been
maybe
you.
There was a Nerd Out episode a long time ago. The SIP is SIP 1852, I believe, that talks about HD wallet derivation paths.
Check out the memory.
And, well, I just looked at it earlier today because I know I was going on SpacePlace.
It's also the first number in the address derivation path, which makes it really easy to remember.
Yes. Yeah. There's also 1854, which we need to use more often. 1854 is multi-sig derivation paths. Nobody's really using them yet, but they should. Anyway,
you and I were the first ones to craft multi-sig transactions back in the Shelley testnet days.
Yeah, it could be. I've forgotten.
These two guys have forgotten more about
I just innovated, but I forgot.
So we're all clear.
Yeah. Anyway,
I innovate all the time. I can't remember everything.
1852 is the idea where you go from mnemonic phrase and you have a derivation path and you get all the addresses and keys associated with a given wallet. And then from there, you query the chain with those things. And he seemed open and receptive to looking into that as well. So
just to ask more dumb questions. So, I mean, what is the real difference between a staking address and a payment address? And in
I'll let Sam
they can be the same, can't they?
They actually can be the same. They're just hashes. So when you're talking about not native scripts, we're not going to go into that. But when you're talking about it, you just generate a key, and then you take the public key of that, and then you hash that public key. And that basically, with a few bits at the beginning of a header, identifies that it's a stake address or a payment address or a combination of two hashes, gives you an address, a payment stake credential. You can only hold funds on a payment address, whereas a stake address basically is associated with how you delegate to your SPO for rewards, and in the future, how you delegate to your DREP for voting.
Cool. Yeah, that's a cool in-depth explanation. Thank you.
So the wallet backend, to nerd out a little bit on what Andrew was saying there, has a coin selection algorithm, and it goes sequentially through the entire blockchain. And it has your root key, so it can derive any address associated with your mnemonic. And what it does is it derives the 0th one, and it has a look ahead. I think it's like 16 or 20 or something. I can't remember the exact number. But
some
basically,
wallets are 20, some are 40, depending on whose wallet it is.
Right, and some of them are customizable. So you have some. Example that set it to like 100 or 1,000 even. What?
We lost you for
you froze
we
up.
lost you for a minute.
You froze a little bit.
Sorry.
I think
we have, there's
stage,
like
though.
some exchange wallets that basically go from 100 to 1,000, 100,000 and whatnot. So I mean, it's completely customizable in the wallet backend. And what that look ahead does then is you look for every single transaction on chain, and if it matches one of those addresses that is associated with your payment key, it then basically adds that to your UTXOs you can spend, and it increments the counter basically of how many look aheads I have. So now I'm looking for the next set of look aheads, and basically it will go through the entire chain looking for everything associated with your payment address. And it does this for 2 sets actually, because Daedalus and the wallet backend use a change address where it generates a new payment address every time for the change of your transaction it's going into, that's unrelated to the payment address that you use for receiving addresses.
Yeah,
so the complexity he's going to have to mimic here to get the same Daedalus experience in the wallet side once he gets to that part is going to be pretty high level. I mean, that's low level, I should say.
And we have to do that for legacy reasons, but most of the newer wallets coming out, they've taken a look at the security model of Cardano and realized that a single address wallet is very, very secure on its own. So we had this idea originally of like deriving a new key for every single change address, but that does have a number of problems with it. And this is an area that I've changed my opinion on over time. I used to think it was great, security wise, like, oh, I'm always going to have these new keys. But then when I make a new transaction, if I have to grab UTXOs off of tons of keys, then my wallet has to sign that transaction with a ton of different keys.
Ton of witnesses.
That bloats my transaction size. That means I pay a higher fee. Like, there's a lot of good reasons why most of the new modern wallets or the new light clients, they have been pushing people towards those single address wallets. So Nami was the first one to do single address wallet. Eternal started off where they would do derived, 1852 derived wallets, and then they quickly changed the default to make it a single address wallet as default. So yeah, I think it makes things a lot cleaner if you just do single address. But again, Daedalus is what Daedalus is.
I'm going to correct you, Andrew. They're the first commercial wallet to do it. I came up with the idea for single address wallets and implemented one called Atta Wallet back in 2020, shortly after the Shelley hard fork, to be able to manage hundreds of accounts with a single mnemonic.
Yeah, I do also most of my transactions with Your Manager, which is my own personal wallet that I use to run stake pools and then also manage, various DripDropz funds and other stuff. But
do you even nerd out on Cardano until you've built your own wallet? That's the question to ask.
I don't think you can claim to be quite nerding out until you've built your own wallet. Yeah,
absolutely.
I still want to run. I haven't done it yet. You gave me the stuff to do it with forever ago, a couple years ago, and I still haven't done it. But I want to run Your Manager just because it looks awesome.
Yeah,
it's got all the graphs and everything.
Interesting you mentioned Joe Manga, because I was having a conversation literally like yesterday. I thought that was a thing based on the ITN. Like when I built a pool on the ITN. I was
that's Jormungandr. That's Jormungandr, the chain.
Let me share my screen again here. We're gonna do a live thing. I think this is the one. So we're looking at the pre-prod environment here. This is Your Manager. This is very similar to other tools people use for running pools. CN Tools is the most popular. This one, I'd say maybe 20 to 30 stake pools are using the system. It's more of an opinionated way to run a stake pool operation. So you set it up with hosts. These are the computers. They can either be local, like this one, Brainy. Clockwork is considered a remote node. Both of these are sitting here in my office next to me because this is, again, the test net. And then you build nodes on top of that. So, you could build a new relay node and you're just typing in information, picking, various what network you want to run on. This lets you run on mainnet, the guild network, pre-prod, preview. Mixed is an old throwaway network we had at one point. That was the one, Sam, we tested on where we were testing different node levels at the same time. The mixed.
That was the Vassal hard fork. That was fun.
But the idea is you go through the wizard here, setting up your pool config, relays metadata, confirm it. And then this reaches out to that remote node, logs in, creates all the infrastructure for setting it up. It's very opinionated. It only sets it up one way. Anything outside of that, you have to, get in there and tweak things yourself. And then it also has leader log capability where you can kind of see what's coming. You can calculate the leader logs. I've already calculated this one into the future. So you can choose future epoch here because we're less than 1.5 days away from the epoch. So it'll do that. I can say, look into the future in 128. Here's the blocks I have upcoming across my, I think I'm running 5 pre-prod pools, something like that. Then the feature I talked about was the wallet. And this is just where you're creating single key-based wallets. Owner addresses. So I've got a bunch of Noom test stuff going on here.
So what's your seed phrase for all of these?
Well, they're on pre.
These are not seed phrase based wallets. These are
damn it,
they're
CLI.
They're CLI random wallets that get put into the Drawer Manager database in an encrypted format. So, and then they're decrypted by a spending password. So it's not the ultimate in security. Like there are people that run their pools in a very, everything is cold mode, and I've chosen to take the trade-off of
encryption.
Things are not cold, but they're at least encrypted at rest. So that's what I do.
There's one thing your demo reminded me of that we really should mention about Turbo. And it's one thing that I disagree with how he developed it. Normally, when you develop a product, you should develop it for a test net so people can actually use it, play with it, try things out without putting any funds at risk. And what he's done in the code base is hard coded all over the place, special cases specific to mainnet for like BFT nodes, the pre-Genesis or the pre-Shelley nodes, when reserves things had things change at specific epochs and whatnot. And by doing that, he's made it very, very difficult for someone to actually take it for a test drive on a network other than mainnet. So I hope he takes my advice in making that more configurable and encouraging it to be used more on a testnet, especially as he starts to develop more features where you can actually do stuff with it. Rather than right now where it just shows, hey, I'm able to sync the chain, look at this.
Yeah, and I think the reason he made that choice is because that's where the criticism or the critics were, is like, if he just did testnet and it synced really fast, we'd be like, well, who cares? That's easy because there's no real transaction volume on testnet. And he's trying to prove performance. And the only way we can prove performance is to show mainnet. So I definitely think I agree with you. He should go back and make it configurable so that the first version that he puts in Daedalus, it points to a test net, and we see how it works.
Yep.
Yeah, you could do an apples to apples there. You could do a Daedalus without the turbo and a Daedalus turbo side by side, same kind of computer, and let them both run and see what, see, even if it's a test net, it still can see if there's a difference.
Yep.
On that note, guys, we are just over an hour. This has been a fantastic journey through the stars with the Nerd Out team. Andrew, thank you for being here. Sam, also, thank you for coming. Not from IO today, just Sam for himself. Thank you for coming and sharing your voice with us today as well. Appreciate it. Josh, thank you. We always love the dumb questions. They're the best questions. We really appreciate it.
That's what I'm here for, man.
It was an amazing surprise to finally be on Nerd Out.
Nerd Out. What was it? You sum it down, but don't dumb it down.
Break it down, but don't dumb it down.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And
that's what I'm here
Danny
for.
Rybar giving us a thumbs up. We had a great discussion today. Thank you, Danny, as well for poking in, letting us know you were watching. We appreciate it. Appreciate everybody that paid attention and watched today. If you've got more questions, you know where to reach us. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.